Dobre utro. Okay, I had help. I don't speak Russian. I was actually asking a friend of mine here yesterday if they could help me translate the word Borderlands into Russian. Apparently there's no word for Borderlands. You could do something like border, but it takes a whole sentence. I thought maybe it'd be fun to get a tattoo of Borderlands in Russian on my body. But it's probably good that there's no translation, because knowing my luck, it would end up saying barbecue grill or something. Any Ariana Grande fans out there? Guys, thanks for having me. This is exciting. This is my first time in Moscow. And I wanted to share a little bit about where we've been and where we're going. I know I'm trusting that everyone in this room is a game developer or is somehow in the industry. I'm speaking to folks like me who just want to entertain people and love interactive entertainment. And maybe some of the things that I've learned along the way might be useful to you and helpful to you as you guys make your adventure in interactive entertainment. Gearbox is a game developer. We're also now a video game publisher. I actually started out as a programmer and designer, and I even have terrible art that I've made that's in shipping games. And over time, I had to learn other skills, figure out how to direct and produce games. And I think I'm still learning. I think we're still getting started. But we've been around for 20 years. We've got a lot of IP. We've learned how to build an organization that can scale development. And we are a rapidly growing third-party publisher. We're helping other developers reach an audience with some of the capabilities that we've earned over the years. We've also managed to do this independently, right? We're not publicly traded. We don't have any outside investors. We built everything under the weight of our own lessons, failures, and successes. I don't know how long many of you have been around. Our first game, Half-Life Opposing Force, was launched in 1999. And when we shipped the game, we were 12 people. And when we began the game, we were 5. And I wrote and directed and produced and designed the game. And you can imagine with a team of 5 to 12 people, and you're trying to live up to making a successor to Half-Life, everyone has to carry their weight. Everyone has to do all of the lifting in game development. If you're curious, this is what I looked like back then. Still had the top button unbuttoned in my polo shirt. We've come a long way since then. Maybe some of you guys are interested in our next big video game, Borderlands 3. Has anyone played Borderlands? Any fans? Wow, that's awesome. Thank you guys. We're not finished yet. We have a lot of work to do. But if you haven't played Borderlands or you're curious, I thought I'd play the trailer again so you can get a sense of what Borderlands 3 is all about. So I announced Borderlands 3 after 5 years of development at the Penny Arcade Expo in Boston, and it was a thrill. Everything went wrong. I don't know if any of you guys watched that event, but I don't know if you how many of you guys can imagine actually appreciate this. Our first game, remember, Opposing Force, 5 people is how we began the project. Borderlands 3 has been in development 5 years. My company has about 450 people now, and the scope is just insane. It's especially there's so many people that want the game and are anticipating the game, so it feels like pressure, but we're doing okay. We're doing okay. So how did this go? First of all, we're bringing this product into this franchise that's already reached about 40 million people. Actually, at the Take-Two quarterly earnings report that they give every 3 months, Take-Two announced that Borderlands as a franchise has actually sold over 43 million units worldwide. Big customer base, a lot of pressure. So when we made the announcement, obviously we're very nervous. Just want everything to go right. I just want the best for the team and all of the people that work with me back in Frisco, Texas, and up at Gearbox Studio Quebec that care so much about trying to entertain everybody, right? Because that's why we do it. So it was pretty exciting to do the announcement and see how it went. The results of that were astonishing. Over 3,500 articles were generated worldwide. The target that the PR and marketing people had was about 800 articles. So just absolutely destroyed the objective. There were over 1 million social mentions during the announcement. It was a #1 Twitter trending topic. I've only experienced that twice in my life. The first time was when it was announced that we were going to actually try to ship Duke Nukem Forever. So to achieve that again for something I think that didn't have that kind of attention to it was a really proud moment. And the trailer that you just saw achieved over 50 million views on YouTube, and it became a #1 trending video on YouTube when it appeared. Later, we did a gameplay preview event. We did that just a few weeks ago in Los Angeles, California. And I'm getting somewhere with all this, but the metrics there were pretty exciting, right? We had people come in and actually live stream the playable version of the game before we had shipped it. And we became #1 on Twitch, generated over 1 million viewer hours in that period, and absolutely destroyed all of our targets that we had for peak concurrent views in the competitive set, beat the Destiny 2 the first playable demo that they did, beat Call of Duty Black Ops, and more recently Mortal Kombat 11. And these were things that we were really looking to compare to, because these were the highest that's been achieved with this kind of strategy. And the strategy is unlike what we used to do, right? We used to announce our AAA video games sometimes years in advance. But we announced this game this year, just a couple of months ago, on April 3rd, in order to launch it this year on September 13th. It's a very short campaign for AAA. And we decided to talk directly to the consumers, right? We went to a consumer trade show to announce, and we deployed the first gameplay experience not through traditional media, but through streamers, through people who play games on Twitch and share games with their fans. Now, we'll see how all this goes. We're in the middle of this. We don't know what the end state is, but so far it's very exciting, and it's very very compelling, and I hope it'll work out. But this is a big, massive scale. How did we get here? Right? This is the first dollar Gearbox ever made. I saved it when we got our first check from Sierra Online doing Half-Life Opposing Force. And I have it framed, and I look at it every day in my office. And it's not because I'm fixated on money, but it does remind me that we have to exist as entertainers. That means we have to care about creating joy and happiness for our customers, but we also have to keep the lights on, and we have to care for ourselves and our talent in that process. And money's part of it. So I think a better question than how did we get here is really, why did we get here? Because it's purpose that creates the motivation. It's purpose that creates the effort. And so I fall back to our mission. Why does Gearbox exist? Why do I exist? And I simplify our mission in this way. It's to entertain the world. Now, that sounds like, a cheesy thing, but if you'll forgive me for a moment, let me break this down for you. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. You see, before I was a professional game developer, I was actually a professional magician. In fact, later today at 1:30 p.m. in the Yellow Room, I'm going to be doing a magic show for those of you that are interested in, we'll see if I can fool you. You can treat every trick like a puzzle. But I was a professional magician working in Hollywood, California, performing at a magic nightclub called Wizards and at the Magic Castle. And it was in this time when I was not really caring enough about school, but caring more about what happens when you create wonder and delight for other people, what that does to us and what that does to the audience. And I think that experience of creating joy and happiness, I think it's the most noble thing of all. And I'm going to explain. There's so many things we can all dedicate our times to. And I think that all of you get this. I think that's why you're all in this room. We could become doctors or healthcare professionals, right? We could spend our lives trying to make sure that we could live healthier lives or longer lives. And certainly that must be a noble enterprise, right? We could become civil engineers and learn how to create structures like the one that we're in, build our roads, our libraries. We could become police officers or soldiers. We could care about the safety and security that we all are comforted by and that we need in order to exist as a society. And that must be noble. We could become lawyers, help us settle our differences or understand our agreements with one another. We could become politicians, the best of which maybe are dedicated to keeping us organized and motivated towards this human pursuit. All of these things could be defended as the most noble by those that engage in them. But I challenge you with this. A longer life, a healthier life, a safer life, a more comfortable life. What's the point of any of it if we cannot experience joy and happiness? I think what makes life worth living is the fact that we can experience joy and happiness, that we can find fulfillment and pleasure. And if that's the case, if the thing that makes life worth living is the fact that we can experience joy and happiness, then the creation of joy and happiness is the most noble thing of all, right? Entertainment is a thing that we figured out as a species where we can commit ourselves to the practice of trying to create joy and happiness for other people and have that be commoditized so that we can afford to spend our time towards that purpose. That's why money's got to be a part of it. We, as a species, value joy and happiness, and we value entertainment. And I think that's beautiful. And so that's the mission. That's the purpose, is to try to create the maximum amount of joy and happiness. And there's a relationship between the entertainer and the audience, right? You make this deal with everyone that plays your video games. When you see me, if you decide to come and watch me do magic at 1:30, you'll see that a magician makes a deal with their audience. And the deal isn't really spoken. The deal is this. Follow along with these rules that I'm creating. Pay attention. And come with me on this journey. And if you do, I'm going to lead you down a line of logic, and I'm going to fracture it. You'll see something impossible. You'll experience surprise and wonder and delight. But it depends on that trust. You've got to come with me. As video game developers, we have to do this without a direct interaction. We do this through our screens. From the very first moment the logos appear to the first seconds of gameplay, we have to earn the trust of our audience. We have to get them to come with us, join our world, commit to and follow its rules. And if you do, if you spend the time with us, you're going to be gratified. You're going to get a sense of accomplishment, a sense of wonder, surprise and delight. And you'll feel like something's happened. And you'll feel joy and happiness, and you will be entertained. And what a beautiful thing that we figured out, that our species has figured out this new medium, right? We get to be here right now. This is the first medium, the first art that our species has imagined where the audience can participate. The audience can change the outcome. The audience can affect it through digital interactive media. Every medium we've come up with before has been passive. I can read the novel, but I must read the words that the author created. Yes, I can skip around, I could skip to the ending, I could choose to put the book down. But if I'm going to consume that art, I have to consume it the way the author intended it. Film, television, music, art. It's all consumptive. It's a passive experience. But video games engage us. And that's why we're here. That's why you are you. Because you know how powerful this can be. And we're just at the beginning. We're just figuring this out. And we're all trying to figure it out together, which is awesome. But let's remember that relationship between entertainer and audience. And never forget, entertainment has value. It's okay to ask our audience and our customers to buy the work that we make. We need that. We have to earn a living. We have to pay the bills, feed ourselves and our families, and it's okay that entertainment has value. It's the way it should be. But here's what we must always remember. If you're going to succeed as an entertainer, what your goal should be, what your duty should be, what your commitment should be, is to always try to make sure that the audience feels that they are getting the better end of the deal. That whatever they paid for what you're giving them is not merely worth it, but it's a bargain. Incredible value. And if you can do that, if the audience that you entertain can feel that they got the better end of the deal, you're going to be successful. Every one of our successes at Gearbox has had this prove true. And when we've stumbled into failures, it's where this hasn't been true for some of our customers. And we have to think about that. What did we do wrong? And I think that I've profited most from failure. And fortunately, I've never been in short supply. I've had plenty of failure, constantly stumbling, because we're learning every step of the way. Now, another thing that we did at Gearbox and that I did was I thought about what values should drive us. It's one thing to say that we're going to entertain the world, but what are these things that we care about in the course of that? What can we fall back on? And we boil it down to 3 ideas. Happiness, creativity, and profit. Happiness is about this endeavor. It's about creating joy and happiness for our audience, but it's also about experiencing it for ourselves. The kinds of people that thrive at Gearbox Software, the kinds of people that have been working together, that I've had the great honor and privilege of working with since the very beginning, and the folks that have joined us along the way and have become truly part of Gearbox culture, are the kinds of people that want to enjoy the experience and enjoy working with each other as much as creating the entertainment for the people we hope to entertain. And this is really important. If we're not having fun along the way, we're going to lose ourselves and we're going to get burned out. So we have to respect happiness, and we have to care for it, and we have to nurture it. There was a time when debating our values when Gearbox thought maybe we should change this word to harmony, right? Because we wanted us to all work together as a team. So we thought the word harmony might be a better descriptor. But sometimes game development is not harmonious. Sometimes conflict helps us get to where we need to be. We will disagree on what the best course of action is as we design and create together. Managing that disagreement, managing that conflict, and doing it in a way which continues to value our collective happiness and our individual happiness has been a key to success, I think, for our company. Creativity is really important. It's really fun to solve hard problems. It's really fun to overcome a difficult challenge. And this is what creativity is all about. It's why sometimes we go left when other people are going right. We want to venture into the unknown. When we had launched the Brothers in Arms video game, which was Gearbox's first original IP, massive success. Our first Brothers in Arms game had higher review scores and sold more units than the first games that we were competing against, the first Medal of Honor and the first Call of Duty. And the world expected us to do more and more Brothers in Arms. And that would have been a path to great financial reward, right? We can see what Activision was able to do with the Call of Duty franchise by doubling and tripling down and annualizing it. But we weren't sure that that path would stimulate us sufficiently creatively. And so we immediately moved on to a new IP, and that's how Borderlands was created. And we do it all the time. And sometimes we achieve new levels of success, and sometimes we learn some things. But I think stimulating that creativity keeps us together and keeps us thrilled and engaged and motivated. And I recommend it, even if the easy path might not be the most creative path. But you also have to respect this last value, and this is something we respect. It's a very simple equation. You just have to make a little more than you spend. It's the whole secret of business. If you spend more than you make, the dream ends. And we don't get to keep doing what we're doing. And we don't get to apply the lessons that we learned from our last failure. So we've got to find a way always to make just a little more than we spend. And so profit is a core principle of our company. In fact, Gearbox Software has an incredible profit-sharing program. Everyone at Gearbox that participates in the game development process and is part of our company has some stake in profit sharing. And it's an objective system. We don't have a political system that plays favorites. It's purely based on math, on time, on commitment. And in the end, of the money that we don't reinvest into our company, 40% of our profit is distributed to all of the talent that's part of the team, that's part of the projects. So every time a product is profitable, every time a video game that we launch makes more than it spends, immediately 40% is paid out as royalty bonuses to the team. Gearbox has paid out over $10 million in royalty bonuses to the talent that works there. And I'm really proud of that. I remember when I first founded Gearbox, there was a person I'd worked with at a prior company, 3D Realms. I can't remember who it was. It was one of your partners. I can't remember which one. It might have been Doctorman. I don't remember. I'm looking at Richard Levelord Gray, who I learned a lot about design from. Later, tomorrow, I believe, is it tomorrow? Richard and I are going to do a talk about the old days of game development and Duke Nukem 3D. But he asked me, when I told him my model, not Richard, but the other guy, why are you giving away 40% of your profit to your talent? Right? And I could see this kind of almost Machiavellian, like, you're the boss now, you could stick it to everybody. And I'm like, I'm talent. Like, I'm a programmer, I'm a designer. This is me. I put myself in the same bucket as everybody else. And I think in the end, it's actually made us more successful, because I think all of us think like owners. And the more that I've discovered, the more people are part of the Gearbox family and contributing to its success and experiencing its success, then the more like owners they think. The more they care about what it costs to do a thing and what's going to generate the most gratification and happiness for the audience. So these values have been a driving factor. And we've had a strategy. Almost everything we do follows this crawl, walk, run kind of approach. We start simple and small and try to figure out how things work. And then we apply that to get up off our hands and knees and get going. And then once we know what's going on, we try to race as fast as we can. The crawl phase of our company is largely a work-for-hire experience, right? Half-Life is not a Gearbox IP. It's currently owned by Valve. When we were working on it, Sierra Online made us feel as if they were doing us a favor by giving us a 16% royalty rate. 16, a 16% royalty rate to create Half-Life Opposing Force, Half-Life Blue Shift, Half-Life for PlayStation 2, Half-Life for Dreamcast, Half-Life Counter-Strike. The first Counter-Strike game was shipped as a Half-Life game in a yellow box. And as Gearbox developed those titles for Sierra, we were very proud of the results that we created. But we knew that a work-for-hire wasn't the only path. We had to explore. We worked for Microsoft, who had purchased Bungie and delivered a game called Halo on the original Xbox, and we created the PC version of Halo and wrote the network code that allowed Halo to be played over the internet for the first time and created a bunch of new content and gameplay that is still part of the Halo franchise to this day. Very proud. I learned something when I was working on Half-Life. We were getting 16%. Valve was getting 25% from Sierra. And so with Halo, we got 25%. And each step, I'm like, hey, how far can I push it? How far can we push it? And we did some other work-for-hire projects with Activision and Electronic Arts as we were exploring the industry and trying to discover who would be the best partners, who shared our values. It was difficult. Not many share our values. A lot of video game businesses aren't created by people like you, by people like me, who love interactive entertainment, who are animated by our medium, and who like creating it. A lot of video game businesses are driven by people who see that there's opportunity. They understand that there's value in interactive entertainment, but to them, it's really a means to an end. It's about creating that value and capturing it, and then taking the value and doing something else with it, right? You imagine the typical video game CEO that might make tons of money, retire, and sit on the beach with a pina colada. I last about 5 minutes when I'm on the beach, and then I'm down in the sand making a sand castle. I hope to die in office. I love what I do. And we could go back down to 5 people, and I'll still make video games. It's important to remember this, and remember your values and remember your mission as you take these next steps, as we got up off of our hands and knees and started to walk. So we created some original IP, property that universes, characters, stories, gameplay, art that's original to our business. We created Brothers in Arms and Borderlands, and we learned what it was like to kind of venture out there and put ourselves out there. When we did Brothers in Arms, it's a first-person shooter. We innovated in the gameplay by adding tactical options, by giving the player the ability to command allies. But our story, although original, and our characters, although original, drafted off of what we expect from the World War II subject matter that we covered. The art direction drafted off of what we expect from the World War II subject matter that Brothers in Arms is based on. So we innovated in gameplay, but not so much in story and style. Borderlands was a massive leap of faith. After the success of Brothers in Arms, we thought to ourselves, what if we took a risk on every front? Story, style, and design. What if we created an original universe, our own story, our own characters, our own place? There's nothing like it in the world. What if we created a new look and feel, a new style to the game? And what if we innovated in game design? And Borderlands, of course, has that one-of-a-kind Borderlands art direction, the unique Borderlands universe, which is neither a sci-fi or a Western, somewhere in the Borderlands between those two things. And the gameplay, which is neither a shooter nor a role-playing game, somewhere in the border between those two things. It's ushered in the shooter-looter. And it worked. It worked. And with that, we've had a lot of new power, new success, new resources, and new capability. And so we wanted to get up and run and apply that and use that to the advantage of not just Gearbox, but to the industry, to our friends and allies. So we created Gearbox Publishing as a sister to Gearbox Software. Gearbox Publishing is very young. It's barely 4 years old. And its mission is a little different. It is underneath the mission of Gearbox, which is to entertain the world. But its mission is to be the most developer-friendly publisher in the world. We wanted to be the publisher that we always wished existed for us. And why do we need publishers? Well, some of the stuff is hard, right? Yes, you can develop a game and find a way to get it onto the App Store, get it up on Steam, but in order to launch on consoles or more closed platforms, you have to have relationships with those platforms. You have to be an officially licensed publisher on those platforms, and that's a short list. Those guys are busy, and they can't support everyone. You have to be capable of manufacturing physical product and delivering it if you care about retail distribution, which is still at least half of our business. If you've had a success and you've only reached people digitally, you're basically giving up half of your potential reach. Now, yes, it costs more to deploy at retail. There's a lot of costs along the way, but you can figure this out, or you can partner with publishers like us or others to help you get there, and you'll find that there's a customer there waiting for you. There's a lot of challenge these days in discovery. I remember when platforms like the Apple App Store and Steam first appeared, and just being there was enough to be discovered because there wasn't a lot of choice. But today, there's about 1 billion apps on the Apple App Store, and you can't even parse all the options that you have on Steam. So discovery is a big deal. This is where marketing and PR and communication is useful. And if you want to be in retail, it takes relationships. We're kind of a unicorn in this regard. We're not publicly traded, and yet we've managed in North America to build direct relationships with the largest video game retailers, GameStop and Walmart. This is no easy feat. This is a very small list of publishers in this club. And we expand our capability to other territories. We've helped a lot of folks reach customers so far. Some friends that are in this room, like helping Alex out. I don't know where Alex is. There you are. All these orange jackets, and you're wearing brown. Hello Neighbor. What a beautiful game. And to help those guys reach retail is a privilege. And to see that product on store shelves when I walk into a Best Buy or a GameStop I feel proud that we were able to do that. And of course, you can see some Gearbox titles up here, but a lot of third-party titles. One of the most recent ones, Risk of Rain 2, was just launched, and we announced it and launched it with incredible developers. A 3-man team made Risk of Rain 2, and they achieved over 1 million units of sales in their first month of early access, the first 1 month of early access. And we were able to announce their game on the same stage that we announced Borderlands 3. So it's going pretty good so far. Gearbox Publishing is very, very young. And yet, Gearbox Publishing has already paid out over $20 million to its third-party development partners that have trusted us to bring their games to retail or to digital and retail in some cases. $20 million paid out to third-party developers. That's twice as much as Gearbox has earned for itself in its own royalty programs. It's incredible. But here's the beauty. I think we're just getting started. We have a lot to do. And so we have to remember, as we move ahead, as we expand in reaching new demographics, reaching new territories, reaching new platforms, exploring new business models, we have to remember what the point is. We've got to always fall back and remember the mission. Remember our mission, it's to entertain the world. The world's a pretty big place. At the beginning of this talk, I bragged that Borderlands has sold over 43 million units. That's a big number. But it's a dismal failure if your goal is to entertain the world. There's 7 billion people in the world. And look how much of the world is still dark. We're not going anywhere, you guys. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep breeding. And all the new gamers, all the new people, they're gamers. Every person created comes into this world being part of this experiment, joining the information age, the digital age, and preferring over all other forms of entertainment, video games. So we've got a lot of work to do. I look at that dollar every day, and it reminds me, in addition to the objective of being responsible, it reminds me that we have to be flexible. We've got to adapt. We have to, in order to accomplish this mission of entertaining the world, we're going to have to figure out how to reach new territories, how to expand into new genres, how to reach new platforms and think about new ways to find and access content for our customers around the world. And this dollar helps me think about the flexibility and the adaptation that's required. I mean, look at this thing. This is a US dollar. I'm sure you've seen it before. You're familiar with it. And that guy, the picture of that guy that's on the face of the US dollar, that's George Washington. And that picture wasn't made for the bill. That's a painting. It's art. It was created by people like us, but in an earlier time, before we had computers. Have you ever seen the original artwork that led to the creation of the dollar? It was created by an artist named Gilbert Stuart. That's the original artwork. Right out of the gate, there's something really fascinating about that. I mean, this is arguably the most famous rendered image of a human being on Earth. More people have seen this art than probably any other art on the planet. And this is what it was drawn from. Look at that. That canvas is mostly empty. Clearly, when the artist, Gilbert Stuart, sat down to make this painting, he intended to fill the entire canvas, and yet he only finished about a third of it. But Gilbert must have had to adapt, must have had to improvise. Maybe the dude ran out of paint. Maybe he ran out of time. Right? What are the things that's always our problem? Not enough memory, not enough CPU, not enough time, not enough people. Every artist in the history of our medium has encountered that. And the answer is always to prioritize, to focus on what matters, remember your mission, and remember your values. Stuart did not finish his work, but he did. He got it right. He captured George. You can feel George. You can feel the gleam in his eye. And because he succeeded where it mattered, this is the most famous painting of a human we've ever had. So I think about that, and I look at that dollar every day as we make the decisions to navigate and move forward with this experience. So here's some thoughts I want to leave you with. Whatever your mission, find meaning in it. I attach my mission to deep intrinsic purpose. You can do the same. And you want to bind your mission and your values together. Whatever you actually value, connect that with the objective you set. And never forget that mission. It is your North Star. It is the guiding light. So hopefully some of this will be helpful to you. I forget it all the time and have to constantly remember. And when I do, sometimes it helps us be more successful and helps us reach that goal of making people feel joy and happiness. Thank you, guys. I guess I'll go this way.
Oh, no, wait. Q&A. We have some time, maybe for a few questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so if you want to ask 1 or 2 questions.
I'll answer
so,
questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, let me ask first.
Sure.
Let's talk about the past. Let's talk about your first game. It
Yes.
was Opposing Force for Half-Life. Tell me how creative you were in these years, and how much control Valve had about you, and maybe how you should be creative if your company only on the stage crawl, you called it.
So the question is about our first project, Half-Life Opposing Force, and how much freedom we had.
Yeah.
And how we applied that with creativity. I was working at a previous company called Rebel Boat Rocker that had just had its project canceled by Electronic Arts. And we'd all started to scatter. We're interviewing with all the other developers and publishers. And I realized that we had something, that the talent working together knew each other, and that institutional knowledge and being able to anticipate each other's strengths and weaknesses was valuable. So I thought, we have to stick together. And I got us all together and we thought, what should we do? We decided we didn't want to take any risks on creating an engine, creating a universe. It was going to be enough to create a company. So we wanted to work with someone else's property. And Gabe Newell had heard that we were kind of splitting up, and he called me. And he asked if I'd thought about Half-Life. And literally that morning, as we talked about all the other games that people had made that we could work on, we thought Half-Life is the right one for us. It fit our capabilities, and we loved it. And so I flew up to Seattle, and I pitched Gabe a simple idea, which was, hey, what if you're the soldier? What if we do a follow-up where you're the soldier, you're the opposite team? I remember Half-Life was about Gordon Freeman, the scientist, trying to escape Black Mesa after the cataclysm that had aliens and invading his facility, and the soldiers came in to silence everyone, to kill all the aliens and kill all the scientists. And so what if you were one of the soldiers? How would you deal with that? And I pitched it as sort of a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead kind of thing, where this story was happening concurrently to Freeman's story. And he loved it. He said, here's the thing. I know you guys can do it, and I love the pitch, but you have to drive down the street to talk to Sierra Online, because they actually own Half-Life and their publisher. So I drove down the street and I pitched them, and they said, cool. And we did a deal. And the deal took about 2.5 months. And that was it. That was it. That was the only influence or interaction we'd had with Valve. We got the tools and we got the source code, and we were on our own. I had, I think, 2 phone calls with Mark Laidlaw, who was the writer. And then when we finished, we were not gold yet, but we were beta. I took a copy of the game up to Seattle and gave the disc to Gabe and sat in his office as he installed it. And I just sat behind him as he played through the game. He seemed to like it. He didn't stop. And then we did more Half-Life stuff. We got invited to make the console versions of the original game. We got invited to make another sequel, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we were very fortunate. We had no help. We had to figure out everything on our own, but we also were able to be free in that sandbox. And I think we treated it with respect. Instead of trying to reinvent what Half-Life was and make it our own, we committed to what Valve had created and committed to what that should have been.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so thank you for inspiring talk.
Thank you, guys. Come see my magic show in the Yellow Room at 1:30, and if you want to hear me talk more about the past, I'll be with Level Lord tomorrow, and we can talk about the old days of like Doom and Duke Nukem. See you guys later.
Okay, thank you.